strange thing is, asking people what's the depth of the river, what's the draft in any one place, and they really don't give you but the gauge. You know, they say it's off the gauge, but then you ask, what's the gauge off of? Well, it's like, so even the towboaters don't know how deep the river is most places. They go by, you know, what it was since the last time they went down. So it's, I think everybody kind of expects to touch mom and measure it that way. You've done that.
That's the seeker. He's describing when people ask him the depth of the river. He said nobody really gives him a straight up answer. They just give him a gauge reading, and that's how we run it. That's I don't know. That's one of the most common questions I get is how deep is the Mississippi River, and that's one of the most complicated questions to answer. That's my job. That's what we do. That's what towboat pilots do. We run up and down the river, and we have to know where we can run. So asking how deep the Mississippi River is, it's such a broad question. It's, you know, it's 31 foot right there. It's 27 foot right there. It's, you know, 1 foot somewhere over there. And that's just in one cross section of the Mississippi River. So when somebody asks me how deep it is, it's just so varied. And then I'll say, okay, well, it's about 30 foot. Well, right here, it's about 30 foot. I go about another 50 foot down, it could be 12 foot, or, you know, it just varies so much. The depth of the Mississippi River. One of the most common questions I get, and one of the most difficult questions to answer. Albert, the gauge reading. Like I said, when I'm at home and I'm just trying to get a mental picture in my head what it is, I'll check Memphis gauge. Now Memphis gauge, we're running at minus a level now. So people say, well, how can it be minus something? You know, because we were like 30 foot at flood or 40 foot at flood stage or something, and then you know, it falls out, and now we're down to a negative number. And they said, well, how can you be below? Well, that's a gauge reading. It's a gauge reading. It's a constant gauge. And then it's like sticking a stick in the mud. It's almost exactly that. You stick a stick in the mud, and that's going to stay in exactly the same elevation, same spot forever. You put marks on that stick. Well, that's how you judge what the river is. Now, knowing how deep it is in a certain spot based on, you know, it's in relation to what that gauge reading is. So, you know, I know that this is I'd have to pull it up, but a certain gauge at this stage, I know that sandbar is showing. You know, we mark it in our charts. That's our job, is to know how deep the river is. So when somebody asks me how deep the river is, it's a complicated question. It's a complicated question, complicated answer. I can tell you, it's at least 9 foot deep, because that's what we got, and we've come all the way down it almost. So it's at least 9 foot deep. I guess that's what I could say. At least 9 foot.